We know that you would count as a close colleague the president of the World Bank. Are there regional development banks that are analogous to the IDB in other parts of the world that you look to for as a conversation partner, for advice, counsel, or for lessons learned from other regional contexts?
Absolutely. There is actually, beyond the World Bank, which is, of course, its mandate is for the world, there is a regional development bank for Africa, which is the Africa Development Bank. There is one for Europe that is basically the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development that was created when the Berlin Wall came down. It was basically to help countries in Eastern Europe transit into a market economy. And then there's a bank in Asia, which is the Asia Development Bank. We all meet at least twice a year. We always have teams of our different areas of the bank that cooperate very closely. For instance, this past, about a month ago, we had the beginning of the month, we had our last meeting, and we agreed that any company that has a contract, say with the IDB, that is found guilty of doing corruption-associated practices will be debarred from being object of financing from any other of the institutions. So a company that sells generators that was involved in some corruption case will not be allowed to bid any project that is financed by any of the other institutions. We work a lot on the whole question of development effectiveness, which is very important to the work that we do. And in general terms, we have constant conversation.
How have those conversations changed during the 5 years that you've been in your role? Have you seen the issues change a bit, or are the priorities or the items on the agenda different today than they were 5 years ago?
I would say the fundamental change is that when I came to the bank, there was a big question mark if these institutions were worth it at all. These were the great years. It seemed that there was no stopping to this great time. And why have these development banks? Countries could go to the markets, they could get, place their bonds in very competitive rates. And I think what all this crisis taught us is how important these institutions are. And I think all of us did a lot of really impressive work in being as counter-cyclical as possible in supporting the countries where we operate as much as we could in a way that is truly unprecedented.
And if you think about the effects of globalization on the region, it's having an impact in every part of the economy around the globe. How are those effects being experienced in Latin America and the Caribbean?
Well, it changes from region to region. The Central American region, for instance, has a bigger percentage of its GDP to total trade, especially exports or imports. It's less so in some of the larger South American countries. So take a country like Brazil, maybe total trade to GDP ratio is probably around 22%. And you go to a country like any country in Central America is probably over 50%. So certainly a trade shock affects, and that the impacts of what happens around the world will affect them tremendously. Having said that, still, for some of those larger countries, their domestic markets matter. And the fact that you have growing middle classes in our countries is a very important experience. But notwithstanding, in all of these countries, especially in some of the larger ones, what you're seeing is the emergence of global companies. And you're seeing more and more the South-to-South cooperation, the lessons that India, for instance, has on development, the activity that China today is the first trading partner of Brazil, bigger than the US. Right. Trans-Pacific trade is the biggest growth in all trade in the world. That means that countries in South America, about a third of their trade is with Asia. So all of that change has definitely immersed more and more Latin America into the world.
Thank you. So let me ask you one last question, but it has three parts. You're coming up to the conclusion of your first term, 5-year term, this October. Will you run again? What are you proudest of in your first term? And if you decide that you're running again, what do you hope to accomplish in your second term?
Look, definitely, I'm looking to, you know, the kind of change that institutions like this need, and the implications that they have not only for the kind of work that we do, but more importantly in the learning that as an institution we have to take time. I came in with really a mandate for change. I did a major realignment. About close to 5 people in the bank left because either they were close to retirement or because we created a mutually separation agreement process. It was a very tough process to do. We incorporated, a really good, great talent pool from people from throughout the hemisphere. In the process, we basically we did the biggest capital increase in the history of the bank by 70%, $70 billion more. And we focused on a number of priorities. So if you ask me what I'm proud of, is basically to begin that process of transformation and to stay with it, because to consolidate it takes time. I will have to make a final decision as to if I will run or not, but I will tell you this. In our annual meeting, I was very heartened by the level of support I found with all countries. So, I think I'm still young, and this work is very intense and intellectually one of the most challenging jobs I've ever had in my life. But at the end of the day, the mission is so great that it deserves all your energy.
Well, you've provided superb leadership in this first term. We wish you the very best as you move into the rest of this year. We want to thank you for being with us today and to make this very special day that much more special with your presence.
Thank you very much.